to the Possibility Hub video series. I'm Carol Talbot, the creator and founder of the Possibility Hub. Now, if you're fed up with the shenanigans in the world over the last few years and feel that something's not quite right with what we're being told and taught, then this conversation will open your eyes further. In addition to being a transformational coach, martial arts master, an international speaker and best-selling author, Garry Jones has taken on a regional role of mayor for the Republic of England, which is founded on the idea that being sovereign resides with the people. Hello, Garry, and welcome to the Possibility Hub. Now, we had a very, very interesting conversation last year when you shared that you'd taken on a new role in addition to all the other things that you did and still do. You said you'd taken on the role as the mayor of the Republic of England. And I found that really interesting because we're both on the same page about the shenanigans going on in the world, you know, the lies, deceits, and things like that. Except rather than just talk about it, you're one of those people who goes out and does something about it. And the Republic of England is not just an organization or a structure that impacts English people or the people of England. I feel that it has a much broader impact, and good that England or that you are doing something about it. So let's kick off the conversation there with helping people understand a little bit more about your role and the Republic of England, the reason it was set up, and what it really means to be sovereign.
Well, I guess if we go back to the beginning of this, so I'm one of a number of mayors, and I'm specifically covering the West Midlands area. So what does it mean in terms of a Republic of England? Its role really is to educate people about their own sovereignty. So that's what a republic is. If you look at what a republic is, it's the people running the government. Well, we seem to have gone a bit the other way around. Now, in terms of mayors, what do we do there? It's all about educating people about who they really are. So imagine we'll get into that conversation a little bit later on, which might surprise people. And what rights they do have. It's something that's bandied around all the time now at the moment, really, about that's my right, this is my right. But let's get into understanding of like, what is law mean? What does legal mean? What are lawful acts? What are acts by Parliament? All of these things people should really start to get themselves educated about because it has such an impact upon their lives.
Can we also...
I really, as a mayor at the moment, the whole Republic, this is just, I've not been voted in, so it's almost against it. All the principles in a way, really, but we've had to start somewhere, and eventually it will get to a whole system behind this.
Can we clarify for people the meaning really of being sovereign? Because I know some years ago, when I came across, you know, there's certain individuals in the world who choose to be sovereign. In other words, they almost choose to be their own country and not ruled by the rules of the place that they live. So what's your understanding of being sovereign?
Well, if I start with a mantra that I use in my own life, which is the first thing to do is accept nothing, believe nothing, check everything. The check everything part is your sovereign part of you. This is just a game. We're all in a big game. Let's call it chess. And on that game of chess, instead of being a pawn, why not take the role and choose? You choose to take the role of your own queen or own king as you see it. So in terms of being sovereign, we obey the law of nature, natural law, still made up perhaps really about thou shalt not harm anyone and all that goes with that. It's still somebody made that up. But to be sovereign is that I have the right to choose. Now, in the UK, certainly, one of the things of understanding in law would be the Slavery Act, to understand that. And in the Slavery Act, passed by the UK in quite recent terms, do your own research. I'm not going to tell you how to get it and that. Do your own research. But in the Slavery Act, there's a simple question. Do I have an option in this or not? And if the answer is no, then that's the term of a slave. Like paying tax, for instance. Do I have an option? I will be told, no, you don't. But the reality may be a little bit different. That's being sovereign. I educate myself. I take responsibility for myself. You and I also coach people, and we know how difficult that is. One of the most difficult barriers to get over, being a victim in life or a slave, each other, perhaps they're one and the same, is that you have to take responsibility and accountability for your actions from here on in. That would be my interpretation of being sovereign, understanding who you are, what rights you have, and deciding upon your values and ethics you want to apply in the world. Then
And
holding yourself responsible and accountable for them.
yes, because I was going to say it's sometimes easier said than actually done. And so this is where I admire you for taking a stand and taking such an important role. So when was the Republic of England set up, and who comprises that group? Is this a sort of group of sort of left-wing people who said we're not going to comply, or what's the mandate there in terms of the vision to create shifts and changes and get more people saying, this isn't right, I'm going to do something about it? And it's very, very challenging to stand up to what we've been taught and told. I often say to people, if you think about it, from the moment you're born, you're given a name, you're placed into a religion, placed into a culture, you're sent to school and taught a history that may or may not be true. You're then tested on that history. And if you get it right, you're the star of the class. And if you get it wrong, you're the dunce of the class. And that pattern can stay with you. Yet, even in school, when I think of education and some of the things I learned, I've never really had to use what we were taught about arable farming in northern Spain. In my day, it was a slide rule, never had to use it. So when people think about how useful some of their education really is, bar a piece of paper saying that you've reached this level or a certain status, was it really all about control and getting you to do what somebody else is going to tell you? And who says what history is correct or not? Could it just be somebody or a group of people made it up, put it into books, and there it was, and that's what we're taught?
Well, you're absolutely right there, isn't it? If we go back to the education system, how it's designed, where we were all sat at desks not to move, which is totally alien for a child to sit still for hours and hours and then be rebuked for moving and wanting to use up the energy that we've invested into ourselves. The whole system was designed around an industrial revolution, but of course we're moving into a different revolution. It's clearly being told and spelled out for us yet again on how we should comply. The Republic of England is encouraging people that maybe don't comply if it's ethically incorrect, if it's going to damage people. Now, of course, things will change, and it's not about us going back to farming the land with a harrow and a horse-drawn plough. We don't have to turn technology away. About us finding our own education is, what does this do to the world? And ask ourselves, when we're told a global information of build back better, there's always something to ask: is quo bono? Yeah. For who? For who? Building back better for who benefits? Trace the money in everything. When we understand the law, when we get into that, and again, people, please go out and do your own research. What does the word law represent? L-A-W. It's land, air, and water. Land is the natural land law. Air is ecclesiastical law. Look towards the Roman Catholic Church for most of our laws. You can go back a few hundred years where even a papal bull was passed where they own your souls and the air you breathe. Now we've moved on a bit since then, but they're still applied. And then the last one, which really affects us all, is maritime law. That's why you go into a dock. That's why you have a naval in the middle of you. Yeah, all these maritime terms, if you start to research what they really mean, why are you summoned to court? What is a law and what is an act of parliament, or whether it's France, Spain, or the UAE? How are laws passed? Because mostly, even the American laws, they're set around British and Roman Catholic. The research is really important. I can't stress how much to you. Like, go out and find out how things really affect you. And in terms of education, you at first you're going to be quite shocked. Certainly when you ask yourself the question, in all of the mystery schools of the world, know thyself was the most important thing. So who am I? I'm not what I'm on my birth certificate. There is a huge clue. Find out what a birth certificate represents. Remember I said maritime law. It's a birth. What does that mean in a maritime language? And then what does certificate mean? Spend some time, find out for free. You can download it for free. You'll find it. Black's Law Dictionary. And start to look up words. What does a person mean? What does birth mean? What does certificate mean? What does legislation mean? And you might be quite shocked because this language, the language of law, is deliberately designed to fool you. So we have to bring our education up to the system. We look at the world and we represent people as evil, perhaps. Now, in business, when I was in the corporate world, one of my business heroes was Dr. Edwards Deming. And the biggest thing I ever learned from him really was it's not the people, it's the system. So should we be annoyed that, and I really don't like how the word is used, the elite may not be paying taxes? Yeah, and not the elite. They're not the elite, they just know the system. Yeah. So should we get upset by Starbucks never paying any corporation tax or hardly ever? No, no, we shouldn't. Because the people running those companies, it's beholden on them as shareholders to make the most money they can for the shareholders. That's their job. The system allows them to not pay the tax. The system has been designed that way. So coming back to one of the roles of the Republic of England is to find and provide solutions, not just whinge about it, moan about it. What are viable alternative solutions which is equitable and fair to the majority of people? Try as you might, it's not going to be fair all the time, is it? If somebody murders somebody, then they deserve the correct punishment. Then you can't claim that I'm sovereign and I've got the right to murder somebody. That's just silly, isn't it? You know. But in terms of for the majority of the people, that the gap is widening. People are beginning to notice. But as Virginia Satir, like very, very famous family psychologist, said, the strongest principle in human beings is not survival, it's habit. And everybody wants to go back to 2019. It's not going to happen. That life has gone. You create a crisis and you provide a solution that suits you if you want to manipulate the globe. But humans are amazing. And that's what this represents. The ingenuity and the wonder of being human, not a person. Because a person's definition in Black's Law Dictionary is either a slave or a corporation, not a human being. So any legislative documents you ever receive, you should look for that. Have you been named as a person, persons? Yeah, they're treating you like a corporation. That's a clue to go back and look at your birth certificate and look up in Dun & Co. how many times you've been traded as a slave. That's a real shock. So solutions, it's really about giving alternative solutions. And what we're really saying as well, this is a republic, it should be represented by the people. None of the people that have stepped up to be mayors, none of the people that started this organization, again, I want you to do research. I'm not going to give his full name because we've already, including me, put my head on a block by standing up against the system. We've all seen what happens to people with that, but I'm prepared for that outcome. If it means I'm wiped, then that's it. Somebody has to stand up first.
Yes, and
Sometimes
I admire you for that. And I know that you've already had some signs and some warnings, and yet certain people have to take a stand. And I remember listening to one particular person who he was noticing, well, it's not noticing, we all know that certain people who've made a huge impact or breakthroughs in the world in terms of health, healing, new inventions. I mean, we only need to go back to Nikola Tesla and how he was taken out, and other people that all their work was destroyed, Royal Rife. There's many that we could cite. And so I know with this particular person that I've listened to a few times, he said, people, when they have a new creation, obviously they want to be paid for their new creation. They want to make money from it, which is sadly often the reason that they're holding on to their invention and not sharing it with the world. But he's set up a system whereby they'll pay you for your invention and creation. And they'll be responsible for putting it out into the world en masse for free, which means that person is safe from being destroyed, and their material and their new creations that can help humanity are also safe in terms that they're given away for free. And I thought that was a really ingenious solution when you see so many really super intelligent, amazing people create so many wonderful things in the world that are shut down because they don't fit in the box, the small box that we're supposed to operate within. And this goes, and I'll say it now because it shocked me when I was reading some of the things that you sent me through from the Republic of England, but it makes total sense. It was the Cancer Act of 1939, which prevents the promotion of cancer treatment, of alternative cancer treatment, all the way back in 1939. So, and of course, now we know why Royal Rife and many of the other people involved in health and healing in alternative ways that were getting great success were shut down because it didn't fit in with the mainstream. But I was shocked, and particularly because in recent weeks I've had a few people that I think of very highly who have been healthy and then suddenly, told that they have a life-threatening disease, and there's only one course of treatment open to them. And I also discovered that from a particular time in our history, when medical students were sent to medical school, they were only taught one course of treatment. And so it would be easy to blame, doctors, surgeons, and whatever. And this is what they've been taught. And of course, what we have also been taught is that you should trust doctors and medical experts. Going back to what you said was, trust yourself and do your own research. And this is what I've advised the people that, I may open them up to different ideas, but they need to remember that when they seek out medical experts, that they have only been taught one path. That's the only path that is open to them. And that, as an individual, it's for them to explore and trust themselves. As one of my teachers says often, listen to the sound of my voice. From the sound of the voice, you'll get the frequency of truth, and if it resonates with you.
Yeah, the Cancer Act. I actually have a friend, without going into details and incriminating anybody, he worked for a certain gentleman in Ireland who at the time was doing intravenal of mass doses of vitamin C, which will not harm you, but was having huge success. And that was raided by the Garda. All of his information was destroyed. He was shut down and is still in prison now. So, yes, cui bono, you got to trace the money back. Who benefits? Who benefits from providing only one or two solutions which drag it out? That's the question to ask yourself. So do your research. There's not just one solution. There are many solutions. And again, listen to your heart. As your teacher said then, what's the message behind it? What's the enthusiasm of that person, their belief and backing it up? And of course, there are con artists out there as well. And we've all been embedded with that command that that's why we should trust somebody in a white coat. Whether they're an actor on an advert wearing a white coat or not is irrelevant. We've all been convinced that we go with that line. So do the research. Yes, there are quacks. Yes, there are wrong paths to take. You can filter through all those, but isn't that better? Now, a mentor of mine, Dr. Richard Bandler, for instance, at one point, his wife at the time that he dearly loved was dying of cancer, and he was trying every therapy going. And he would say, even at that time, friends would say to him, but how would you know if something works? How do you know which one it is? And his answer was, I don't care. Do you think I really care? All I want is my wife to be well. I don't care which one sorted it out. If
Yes.
maybe it would be a combination of them two. It's the outcome we're interested in. Now, if the outcome is stopped by an act being put through Parliament, and again, look at what an act of Parliament means rather than a law. Maxims of law are really the things you should study because they cannot be challenged. All the other acts can. They're just passed by Parliament. We can undo them if we so choose. Hence, most of the Magna Carta has disappeared, but not for the best of reasons, because cui bono, who does that serve again? But in terms of the cancer, yeah, that's probably one of the, it's a bit of a wake-up call because of how heinous it is.
Yes.
And that really isn't serving the people. If you're there as a representative, allegedly in government, to represent your constituents, how does that serve them?
Exactly. So, with the Republic of England, and if these acts are being passed, is part of its mandate? I know we were talking about solutions, but that also solutions come when people are educated. So, is there an education program to start to get people to become more aware of what is going on? What is law, LAW? What is an act? What it means to be sovereign, and then having the support of a group of like-minded people, i.e. the Republic of England, together creating solutions. So maybe could you share some of the sort of education programs that are in the works for the Republic of England in terms of raising awareness?
Yeah, certainly. First place in terms of like the biggest, there is an actual library, in oneplace.com. There's a huge library of information in there. Some of it will be quite shocking and controversial. Accept nothing, believe nothing, check everything. So use what are you ready to look at so far? That's perhaps how I would term it. And then in republicofengland.com too, events will be posted regularly there. One of the founders of this, Jason, in fact, he had a talk last night. There's another one Thursday. Will regularly give updates on what the Republic of England is doing, solutions we're coming up with, and then it's worth going back and revisiting some of them as well to say what are current events taking place in the world that will affect us. like a potential financial crash that's on the horizon. And then what's happening globally with China, Russia, India setting up the BRICS system as an alternative to the dollar. These that the Republic of England wants to help people through. There are some practical things offered on there as well of solutions, like, for instance, help with things like council tax, tax payments, very practical solutions where if you feel uncomfortable standing up to the system, that there is a team to help you through that. These are the things the Republic of England is starting small with. It's not a massive concern yet. That's my role as a mayor, is to promote it, to educate people so that en masse, then we set up an alternative to the existing government. When you start to look into this, everything's a corporation. Rishi Sunak's a registered corporation. Wales is a corporation. The police forces are corporations. The tax collector for United Kingdom, HMRC, is a corporation. The Bank of England is privately owned. Yeah. When you start to look into these things, then what are we going to do about it? And that's alternative ways of money, alternative ways of bartering and exchanging goods with people. Thinking out of the box. It isn't going to come from me. It isn't going to come from Jason and other mayors. It comes from the people. We the people is quoted often. Yeah. I've been involved with many groups that have the absolute best of intentions, but we won't resolve this just by thinking about love from the couch.
Exactly.
We have to take practical actions. Through my deeds, I say indeed. It's a wonderful ambiguity. Indeed. That's how I will be measured. Indeed. Not by my words alone.
Now, is the Republic of England affiliated and associated with any similar organizations in other countries? And the reason I ask this is going back to what I said earlier. Although this is called the Republic of England, a lot of the issues are not just in one part of the world. They affect many, many other countries and the whole world, really. So I wondered if there's any other similar organizations that the Republic of England is also connecting with, or there's maybe certain people who are listening to this who think, well, I'm not English, or I don't go to England, or I don't live there. How does this impact me? How do I make a difference?
Yeah. This is a global problem, and definitely there's global collaborations. So a very good friend of mine, Santiago Rafael in Costa Rica, he's come up with quite an amazing system there and is leading a group there. Jason, one of the founders as well, is working with quite a number of other countries under the Transatlantic Treaty, really, and the NATO Treaty and the UN treaties, if we're going to recognize any of those bodies. Yeah. But one of the definition of a country is then you have to have a government, you have to have people represented, and you have to be recognized by a other country, a single other country. That's all to be designated a country or a republic. So we've got to get that as a starting point. But yes, in answer to your question, there's quite a number of collaborations because this is happening globally. Already it doesn't meet onto media perhaps enough, but the things going on in Brazil, in Peru, in Iran, in everywhere. Some of those deliberately started, we know, yeah, and some of them as absolute people had enough. We all know whether it's an individual with a problem or a country. You have to reach that point when is enough is enough. But to quote something done by the CIA, done quite a long time ago with Vietnam, in studying how do you win over a culture? And the study in that says it's only 11%. When 11% of a population reach a point that is uniform, the momentum's enough to carry it into the rest. So to make a change in the UK, if we use that as an example, then 11% of the people have to be behind it.
Wasn't it the Transcendental Meditation Institute who, way back in the day when they were teaching TM, Transcendental Meditation, they did a lot of studies and they said it was actually less than 11%. They said when 1% of the population were meditating, and they were actually able to prove this because they did a study in a number of cities, the crime rate dropped. And of course, then there's, two options. One, 1% of the population meditating, it really works in dropping the crime or the crime rate, or else all the meditators were the criminals and they were meditating that night. So there's only those two scenarios.
I hadn't heard that take on it before.
But they did that in a number of cities, and it, and also they didn't just do it in the cities in the US. I think there was studies done outside the US, and even in Lebanon, in terms of when there was war going on, and it lowered the death rate, lowered the fighting, so many things that it goes back to, as one person you feel helpless, and then you see that if one person if we share what we believe or what we're really thinking, which again we haven't been taught and told how really to express ourselves when we disagree with the mainstream. And when we do, we find other like-minded people. And what I love about you, Garry, and what the Republic of England stands for is that indeed, that it's not just talking about this is wrong, that's wrong, and talking about the issues and, we shouldn't be stopped, we shouldn't be this, and that's a lie, this is wrong, but actually coming up with creative solutions and then educating people and getting more people on board that you are not helpless, you are not just a slave to the culture that you're born into, or the education system, or the religion, or the government. You do actually have options, and this is what makes the shift and changes in the world possible when people actually take action. So was it this drive in you that I can't sit by on the sidelines and keep watching, I need to do this, that, you can say that you found the Republic of England, and my view is that when there's something strong in you that doesn't resonate with what's going on in the world, things come into your awareness. And is that how the Republic of England came into your awareness? So maybe sort of we're backtracking now to find your story, how you got involved.
Yeah, things I guess I've known about for a long time. So one of my strong beliefs would be as well then is that when something has momentum, we were talking about whether it's so the Greeks would call it an egregore, perhaps, really, which is another word for a demon, because that was the language of the time. But it could be, let's say, a current event over the last 2 years, for instance. It needs energy to keep going. So whether that's positive or negative, the negative could just be complaining about it, whinging about it. And if you know about what's going on and you do nothing about it, then my view is you're compliant as well. You're actually underlining it and okaying it, or you stand up against it, which whether it means you're banned off social medias, or there are people knocking on your door, whether they're going to use mental institution, Jordan Peterson going down that route at the moment, they're going to throw it at him. You have to do something. For me, I guess if I got to the real gist of what drives me more than anything is my grandchildren. I'm not prepared to let a few individuals destroy them, as strong as that. But I'm not taking that from an emotive point of view, because then I'm giving the whole thing energy, and it needs my energy to feed off it. The better way of doing it is just have an alternative solution.
Yes.
That it has a stronger light that people are attracted to, better than what is being provided for them. People just, they do want solutions. They want to feel comfortable. They want this life of reasonable comfort where I have food and I have warmth and that. And that's all rapidly going from people. So we're providing, maybe there is another way that doesn't take us back to the dark ages.
No,
What are
and
the
don't
dark ages? Stuff that was hidden.
yes,
It's
and
all in
don't
the Welsh archives in Welsh.
sorry, what was that?
It's all in the Welsh archives and Aberystwyth in Welsh, and nobody's translated it yet. It's not that all the information disappeared.
Oh, so the key word there is yet, which presupposes that
Yeah.
somebody will come along and do the translation. I was just also going to highlight, there lies the problem when you said, people want to enjoy their life and live a good life. And so I also find that this is where people become compliant because they don't want to lose the house, the home, the job, the this, even when something doesn't quite sit well with them. And you said it earlier. That Virginia Satir said, it's that urge for survival. But we live on habit, and
Yeah.
I know from some of the things that I teach and tell, behavioral psychologists say that we act with conscious awareness probably less than 1% of the time for the majority of people out there. That we're just really responding and reacting based on the programs and patterns that have been installed in us from childhood, culture, religion, and they become a habit. And to change them feels uncomfortable, and I'm just laughing actually at the moment because my computer, I need to change and put in the new windows and things like that, which means a lot of sort of moving things, changing things, setting up things again. And I keep putting it off because I know it's going to be a little bit disruptive. And so again, doesn't that just highlight that we dislike disruption? But it's chaos and crisis that creates evolution, isn't it? And it does feel uncomfortable at first. And then you align with that new frequency, that new way of being. And this is the beauty of challenging what we've been told and taught and doing your own research and finding other like-minded people who will help you and others come up with solutions that make a difference, so that whether it's for your grandchildren or just leaving the world in a better place, leaving a legacy, you feel that you have done something that's worthwhile.
Hollywood tells you everything. Start to look at movies, and when you start to realize what's going on, if you start to look back through old James Bond's movies, or even if we go to the Matrix, the Matrix, they were all done in by somebody who took the pill and just wanted to go back to the created program because it was comfortable. Yeah, sick of eating rubbish food and everything outside of it. It's an extreme about it, but it was telling you. It's telling you, and once you start investigating some of those things, it's very difficult to go back. You're not going to go
Not
back.
see it. And as you said, watching television, I've never been a great one to watch TV, and when you're watching certain series or movies from a different perspective, you see the hidden messages and so much information in there, and the covert programming, and as I said, the covert messages that are there all the time. So I also encourage people that rather than going and looking at what you're watching as entertainment, it's more entertainment, and train yourself to see things in a different way and understand from a different perspective, and your eyes can never be closed again. Once you've seen it, it all becomes very, very obvious. And you've also shared some interesting self-research for our listeners and viewers to go. There was, let's just remind them, there was Black's Law Dictionary. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. See, Black's Law Dictionary essentially is pretty much actually US law. If you want to get the full UK one, well, you're talking about £35,000, which is quite a nice barrier to letting general public gain access to it. But pretty much they work off the same because, as we know, law pretty much goes off case history to quote stuff back. And the US and England are pretty much interchangeable in that. You'll freely find on the internet, looking in the right places. Forget search engines like Google. You won't find it on there. Go to something like, probably a bit wrong of me to drop names, but Brave or even DuckDuckGo has gone off a bit off the rails now. I don't know as I trust those too much anymore. But if you're persistent, you'll find the right search engines to gain access to this.
And there was one other website that you mentioned. And of course, the Republic of England has its own website, but it was inoneplace.com.
In one place. And you'll find huge amounts of resources on there, videos to help educate you, but also templates for dealing with things. And that we're encouraging people really to keep adding to that as well. As this grows, we want this to be like an Alexandria in its own right, where we can just go in like a mini search engine about things that are really going to impact you in life, like tax or owning your own home. What are mortgages? Is that in fact legal?
Yes. So question. So as we finish off this session, is there a message you'd like to leave for our viewers and listeners in terms of those particularly that have started to open their eyes, open their ears and saying, something's not quite right? What can they do? Where can they go? Other than, get Black's Law Dictionary and inoneplace.com. What would you suggest?
I'll put a link. I'll send you, Carol, of it, one particular video. And if the listeners just watch that, it's not that bad at all because it's still on YouTube. So then it doesn't break too many rules, as in the rules of the game that YouTube is playing. So gently, take this gently. It is quite a shock for many people of how things are actually being run. And carry on with your lives, spend time with your loved ones. Do this in a gentle way. Otherwise, you're just going to get overawed by it and create a bigger problem for yourself. But just let's move towards a chosen goal. Watch the video and see if the message and the vocality behind it strikes a resonance within you or not. And if not, then leave it alone. It's not my right or anybody else's right to get in the way of your chosen life. That's sovereignty. That's true freedom of speech. That's true freedom.
And how wonderful that is. So, Garry, thank you for joining me today. And also, I want to thank you for stepping up, stepping out, and being so willing to share and planting those seeds to maybe get people to think a little bit more about what's going on in the world and if they want to be part of this real change that needs to be coming our way very soon. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for giving me a voice, Carol. It's like I just adore speaking to you, and long may we do so again and again and again.
Thank you.